I just say no. I opt out of growing food for you. That's it. I opt out. Every farmer should opt out. Government, go grow it yourself. We all opt out because you're going to confiscate our land anyway. I opt out. I'm not growing you a thing.
Well, I already know what they do according to history. You know, when the farmers say, nah, I don't want to grow the government food, told them, no, you are going to farm. This is just one more step to show you that the central bank's using things like your health, whatever the case may be. So now you're not going to be able to rent a hotel room. You're not going to be able to get a taxi cab. You're not going to be able to ride on the train, the airplane. You won't be able to do anything. And soon you won't even be able to get a driver's license. And I'm going to tell you why, because you won't be able to enter a government building without your papers. Papers, please. They want to see your papers or your digital equivalent of papers, which is, you know, some could argue the mark of the beast. I'm not that religious myself. However, it's hard to argue that the technocratic system of international banking style takeover of all of the industries is not a beast of a man-made creation, but it's still a beast nonetheless. And that article shows you right there that they are wanting to go down to the microscopic level, meaning just you as an individual, to find out how they can control your spending. And they're going to do that based on your compliance to their orders in society. And you can see that it's a world style banker control by who tells us what they're going to do. Say you have a different theory on something. We're in such a crazy world that every single opinion and thought that you have is now under the microscope. And they're going to treat your life, meaning your ability to get food, pursue happiness, do commerce, all of that's going to depend on your compliance with this new technocratic society. And that IMF article right there almost says exactly that. And that's what that means, is they're going to control every aspect of your life because they're watching you. And they have these learning machines and algorithms that know what you're going to do to a certain degree and can predict your behavior.
Yeah, and I want to continue on the thought process of that in the granular tracking here, because they even talk about, well, what about those people who don't have the credit to get a credit card? Well, they have a lack of tracking them on their purchases. So they want to make sure everybody is in the system so they can track everybody, because there's a certain segment of population that's not tracked right now. And then also, I love this last paragraph here, where it says fintech revolves around this dilemma because they're not able to tap non-financial data. And here's the craziest thing. In rural areas, informal workers in rural areas, so this is where they want to go and get this information, because they already pointed out where the areas that are not being gleaned and harvested of data, rural areas, informal workers, like gig workers, I guess, and then those who don't have credit cards. So they're already pointing out these three areas that need to be reined in. But the way they targeted rural areas, see, that's where the microscope focus is going, the rural areas. I don't know how much of this plan can really work, because, you know, the rural areas are the places that grow food. A lot of food's produced on smallholder farms, 5 acres or less. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of, you know, Monsanto agribusiness, but those areas are going offline because of this grand solar minimum. So my personal feeling is the focus of agriculture moving forward is going to be on small landholder plots of 10 acres or less. So if it comes down to the push to the shove, where they're going to starve you out like they did in the Bolshevik Revolution, what they did in the Ukraine, this is 1920s, I would just stop growing food. Because if it comes down to small landholders growing all the food predominantly because the big agribusiness is going to be offline, then they can't have that many people come in and farm all the farms. If all the farmers and go, nope, we're not going to grow any food. Because I heard this is what the Indian farmers are going to do. They're going to grow enough for their families, and that's it. They're going to starve their nation out on purpose. And reading through a lot of these posts that I've been reading, because I'm so fascinated by what's happening in India, because it's going to be happening here. America will be the 2.0 of India right now, because what's happening with the farm policies and the food pricing and this kind of thing, it's going to happen in the States when we revert over to these smaller landholders when the big agribusiness goes kapoosh in the next couple, I'm going to say less than 2 years. Big agribusiness is going to struggle at its very core to even stay productive and get some yields out of the fields in the north. Because that might be the only thing that we could do is a Gandhi-esque type thing and say, no farmers are going to grow. If you got a small landholder, grow enough for your families, let the government work it out. I know some people will get starved by accident in the middle there, but if it's going to come down to it, and that's the type of change it takes, is you only grow enough food and let the government collapse because they can't feed everybody. I just say, no, I opt out of growing food for you. That's it. I opt out. Every farmer should opt out. Government, go grow it yourself. We all opt out because you're going to confiscate our land anyway. I opt out. I'm not growing you a thing.
Well, I already know what they do according to history. You know, when the farmers say, nah, I don't want to grow the government food, told them, no, you are going to farm. But don't worry about it because we got an alien signal from a habitable world and it's found by scientists. So we're all going to be saved from the Alpha Centaurians 4.37 light years from Earth. That also is in the news.
Open the wormhole. Here we go. I'm making a bold call. I've made this several times over the last week. We're going to have food rationing by the end of the year in the United States, where you're going to need a phone app for your ration card. You're going to have a blockchain-based app. It's going to be on your phone. In December of 2021 or January of 2022, we are going to be into protein rationing. Now, not all the foods are going to be rationed, of course. Junk food will be readily available. But if you're going to want to get high-quality protein sources like certain types of steaks and eggs, you're going to be limited on the amount you can buy. And I'm not talking about going into Costco and you can only buy like 1-2 dozen egg pack. It's like you're going to get 6 eggs for a family for a week. That's it. And you're going to be rationed and you're going to have it on your phone and you're going to have to show that, just like you said. And when you go into the store, it'll say, you already bought the eggs. Can't get any more. Your ration card says so. But we're going to be pushing that at the end of the year. If you got crypto, you're going to be super happy you have some. If you have gold or silver, you're going to be exceptionally happy you have some of that. But the rest of the planet's going to suffer. If nobody took care of themselves with either land and ability to grow their own food, stocked up on seeds, and as alternative medium to buy things during this transition, like cryptocurrency, for example, you know, it would not even surprise me if Bitcoin went to 350,000 or more by the end of the year. And Ransom, you said, you know, cash it out, but there's a lot of big players going in there. So,
oh, no. Cash out in a few years. It's obviously, like I was trying to show you, that the banks are now accepting it as an asset. So that tells you that the bankers are involved in it too. So I only see it going up for the next few years before it crashes. It'll crash around the same time as they inform you your dollar is done.
I was reading this good article called The Next Supercycle. And that's happening now because the 2006, 7, and 8 was a commodity supercycle. And apparently we're running into another commodity supercycle, but this time with your asset cryptocurrency is included in that. So if we're coming into another supercycle, if the fuel prices ran to $5 or $6 a gallon like they did in 2008 and 9, and your food prices doubled with nobody working and so many people out of work and so many private businesses closed and everything, that is the absolute recipe for a catalyst for societal collapse and complete pitchfork change of government in the street right there. Like that commodity supercycle is the end of society as we understand it functioning right now. It's going to have to reset at that point. See, I'm trying to work this out, Ransom. Let me pick your brain for a second. This whole thing, like you'll own nothing. But see, there's this gray area in there. If you already own it outright and you've already paid it off the bank and you don't have no note over it except just for property taxes, like say on your land.
Yeah.
Then how can they come in and confiscate it? Okay, I understand if you have debt on your house and you're still owing, $200,000 and the IMF comes in and says, all right, we're going to take over your house and you can live there and live it out, but you're not going to own it after that. Versus somebody who's paid down to zero, they're in that gray area. So my whole thing is about paying everything down to zero and owning it on the paper, like no debt on it. So all I do is pay property tax. See, that's walking the fine line in the gray area, because this confiscation of land, property, etc., you have to be in debt for them to do that. If you're out of debt, see, this is where I don't know, where do you sit on that line?
It's kind of a weird idea to me, because when we talk about, whether or not you own the land or you don't own the land, they can't take it. In every kind of this kind of activity in all of those places, they didn't care whether or not you owned the deed to your land. They just took it because they wanted it. Matter of fact, a good example is Venezuela recently, where you could see Maduro on film just going around saying, hey, what's that building? Okay, I want it. Take it. And they would take it for the state, for everyone. And then imagine this. Right now, a lot of people don't see it this way. There's a big portion of the government that's pushing for debt forgiveness from predatory lending. So once they've decided that debt has no meaning and that you don't have to pay it back, this also is in the reverse way, a double-edged sword, where the state and all these same people that didn't respect property rights and having debt in the first place will just decide they want things and take them because it's for the good of all. Most people realize that hard times are coming, and they're not only stockpiling food, but resources. Resources will be the key, but I think that you have to plan for every scenario. One, the scenario where you get to keep your land and grow food and have a community. And two, you need to have a plan where the only thing you're taking with you is a bag per person and maybe some seeds in there. And luckily, you'll be in a place that's stable enough for long enough for you to grow enough food to live. But considering so many human beings have done it over the history of humankind, there were the hunters, gatherers, and the takers in history, and it's the same now.
And I wonder when the day is where they come and they go, that food you're growing on your own land, that seems a little dirty to me. There's dirt on it. You're not allowed to consume that. Only after it goes through a government facility and gets checked for cleanliness could you grow eat your own food that you grew. I could see something in the future like this. And as we move forward down the street here with this whole what you can eat, how many calories you're going to be gifted if you're a good person or not, I want to talk about the seals and the mammoths, if I might. On No Trick Zone, Pierre Gosselin, Antarctica hasn't really lost that much ice in the last 70 years. These are the brand new 2020 reports coming out of the southern oceans surrounding Antarctica. But I want to talk about the elephant seals because, we all love elephant seals, especially if they're stir-fried. But the elephant seals can only breed in sea ice-free waters. So this whole report here, this is from Koch et al. 19 and Hall 2006, showed that the elephant seals now have to travel 2,400 kilometers further north when they used to breed 1,000 years ago just to find ice-free waters. They're proving now with the elephant seal skeletons and the abandoned elephant seal colonies, etc., through at least, 6 peer-reviewed published papers on this very study right here, that Antarctica has gained ice, and it was much warmer where these seals were in thriving different areas that need to go thousands of miles and kilometers out of their way now to be able to breed because so much ice has interfered with their yearly flows. Let me continue on with this article because I want to, this is the quote of the day for me, in this whole subject here. This is off Glazer 2020 peer review and then Gersdottir 2020 also. These are two brand new peer review studies from 2020. Unprecedented warmth was 10,000 years ago with elephant seals, circa 8,000 years ago with the bison, and the spatial distribution of permafrost has continually been growing. So this is it right here. We're colder today than in the last 10,000 years, which means we're slipping back into an ice age. And perhaps this 2,000-year cooling that I keep pointing to is maybe the tip point back into a real cold event here. And that's why governments are trying to reshift and reshuffle everything because it's a lost cause anyway.